And you know the sun's sitting fast, just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your love because your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun sitting down on our town, on our town? Good night. Now I sit on the porch, watch lightning bugs fly. I can't see too good, I got tears in my eyes. I'm leaving tomorrow, but I don't want to go. I love you, my town, you'll always live in my soul. And you know the sun's sitting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your love because your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun sitting down on our town, on our town? Good night.
Good evening. Welcome to this Week in Review. Tonight's stories include town workers having water trouble, the Tourism Committee project, interview with members of the Community Trauma Team. These stories plus community events, the BBS Playbill, Off the Rack, and more coming up after this.
It's a land with over 10,000 miles of coastline, thousands of inlets, coves, guts, and bays. A land that lives by the sea. No wonder our dogs have webbed feet. Imagine that.
On Monday of this week, town workers were experiencing some trouble with the main sewer line in the Reach area. Residents in the area noticed that the manhole near the intersection of Burgeo Place and the main road had water seeping out and up through the snow. By Monday, the problem was worse. The water had turned to slush, and because of the cold temperatures, this quickly turned into ice. These conditions made driving in the area a little tricky. There was a large rut in the center of the road and slush to one side because of the running water. The opposite side was ice covered. Drivers were forced to slow down, and in one area they had to drive on the wrong side of the road in order to avoid the rut. On Monday, town workers did their best to assist the problem with the manhole. Because of the blizzard conditions, they didn't have much success. However, they did find out what the problem was. It would seem that the main sewer line was clogged, and this caused it to back up into the manhole and overflow onto the road. On Tuesday, the workers were busy digging out the drains and culverts. The loader was removing the snow and dumping it over the road in this area. Another worker was removing snow from the culvert. Once this was done, they pumped the water from the manhole and used chemicals on the sewer line in an effort to clear the clog. It wasn't long before the problem was solved. The remainder of the afternoon was used to clear up the slush and ice from the road surface, thus improving driving conditions. The parish hall was also experiencing trouble with their water. To look at this mess, one would think that the water pipes had broken or a water line had frozen. But this wasn't the case. It was a case of water overflow. Parish hall workers were relieved to know that all the water came from under the building. This problem has since been corrected. On Tuesday of this week, we spoke to Jim Pink, chairperson of the Burgeo Tourism Committee, about their project. 2 individuals were hired under the Provincial Job Creation Program, one for approximately 10 weeks and the other for approximately 4 weeks. One of the workers is working out of their home. Most of their work will be done on the computer. They are working with the information that was collected by the student hired last summer. They will be collecting additional information on some historical sites around town. This information will be used with the signs that will be erected in these areas. The other worker will be constructing the signs. The signs will be painted, sealed, and covered with plexiglass to protect them from the weather. Jim told us that there were approximately 12 prospective sites, possibly near the old co-op, Clements, and the government wharf are just a few. The tourism committee are hoping to have the signs ready to go as soon as the weather permits. It is expected that it will be May month before the signs go up, and they will be taken down again before the winter season begins. We don't have film footage on the signs because Jim asked us to hold off until one of the signs was done so the community could get a better idea of how they will look. We will bring you more within the next couple of weeks. On Thursday of this week, Corporal Derek Strong stopped by our studio to talk about snowmobile regulations. We have with us in our studio today Corporal Derek Strong, and we're going to be talking about some Skidoo regulations. And welcome, Derek.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good.
This is a topic that comes up every year, that when we have snow and snowmobilers and rules and regulations. Can you just give us a basic rundown, if that's possible, because I know it's pretty complicated, about the rules and regulations?
Well, the act is kind of complicated, and that's why we get so many calls every year from mostly parents regarding their children using skidoos. They want to know what the law says. So I do have a printout here of the actual act. We won't go through the whole thing because there's a lot to it.
Okay.
Basically, in a nutshell, for skidoos. Under 12 years old, you'll be surprised to know, maybe, that you're not allowed to operate a skidoo if you're under 12 at all.
Okay.
If you're 12, but not quite 13, you can operate a skidoo if you have a person 19 years of age or over with you. They don't have to be on that machine, but they have to be skidooing with you.
Okay.
So you're being supervised.
Okay.
From 13 to 19 years of age, you don't need any accompaniment at all.
From 13 to 19, okay.
You can skidoo, no problem.
By yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, 19 or over is not a problem.
Okay.
Everybody enjoys skidooing.
Wow.
And now that all our snow is here, people are, I hear skidoos all the time. People are enjoying the weather.
Okay. What about insurance and registration? That obviously that's a must.
It is a must. It
Yeah.
is a must. People do take chances, and they don't insure their snow machines, but it's a chance you're taking. And we really encourage people to follow that one.
Okay.
Because if there's ever an accident, you'd hate to be responsible for all the costs. And then basically, if you have an accident and we check to see if you have insurance, then we're under obligation then to maybe lay a charge for no insurance, and we don't really want to get into that at all.
Okay. And obviously, safety equipment is a must as well. I don't know if it is under the law, but it is. I'm not
We
sure.
strongly encourage helmet use.
Yeah.
None of this is any fun at all if you can't stay safe.
True.
And lots of people do enjoy a day out on the snow. But if you're not safe, there's just no point in it. Please wear a helmet.
Yeah.
Please wear a helmet. Ensure that your kids wear a helmet.
Okay.
If you're an adult with a snow machine, please wear a helmet. And so you're serving as a good role model then for everybody. I know when we use skidoos, the members always wear helmets.
Okay.
Trying to set a good example for everybody.
Okay.
Sometimes if you're out in the country, it wouldn't take much at the speeds that skidoos can travel. If you hit a branch or a tree with your head, it would be a pretty major problem, right?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Being a small community, a lot of our skidooers doesn't have access to the trails, just outside their house. So at some point in time, they may have to cross the road, maybe a couple of times, if I'm thinking like in the area where your office is located.
Yes.
So the proper procedure for that is what?
Well, the law's pretty clear on that, and you're allowed to cross a road at a right angle.
Okay.
If the traffic is clear in both directions, obviously that makes good sense, right?
Yes.
You're not going to cross the road if there's traffic coming. Some people do take a chance though and try to beat traffic. That is totally against the law. The traffic has to be clear for 100 meters in each direction.
Okay.
So no traffic whatsoever, and only at a right angle. Now, we are aware, of course, that some residents do need to travel short portions on the roadway. We do, even though it's not covered under the Act itself, we're pretty reasonable in that regard. And if it's a very short distance and people do their best to stay off the travel portion of the roadway, we're pretty good about that, but only if people are reasonable with us too.
Okay.
If we see skidoo tracks going up and down the middle of the road, then somebody's going to get a ticket.
Okay.
It's not safe. It's illegal, first of all,
Yes.
but mostly it's just not safe. Somebody's going to get hurt, and that's what we want to avoid.
Okay. So our skidooers can be very young. They are permitted to do it. 13 to 19, they can ride a skidoo
Without accompaniment.
without accompaniment.
And under 12, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to operate a skidoo.
Unless you're with someone else.
Under 12, you're not allowed to operate a skidoo.
Yeah. So a 12-year-old, even, say for example, if the family has a couple of skidoos and mom and dad are on one, the kid is not allowed to be on that skidoo by himself.
That's what the law says, Marie.
Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to make sure I understand that.
I know.
That's why I asked you to repeat it. But if you're 13 to 19, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because lots of dealers sell the little kitty cat skidoos.
Yes.
I mean, you see lots of those. At least years ago, there were plenty around. And there's no one that can legally operate those unless you're over, unless you're 13 or over. And by that time, you don't want a kitty cat at all. You want something with a little more power.
Yes.
But those skidoos were causing people to break the law because under 12, they're not allowed to operate.
Okay.
It's all to do with safety, Marie.
Of course it is.
Really, that's our only concern.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for clarifying that and trying to make it simple for us.
Marie, anytime, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to call the office about something specific, and
Okay.
we'll do our best to answer your questions for you.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming in.
Okay, Marie, thanks.
Stay tuned for more of This Week in Review coming up after this.
Icebergs drift south. Humpbacks migrate to the north. This is the place where their paths cross. They say you can't see the icebergs for whales. Imagine that.
On Thursday of this week, we spoke to two members of the community trauma team. We have with us in our studio today Derek Strong and Kathy Cutler, and they're with our community trauma team. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
And I think I didn't say the name right.
No, we have our team as a community trauma team, but we decided to call our team a traumatic event response team, TWIR.
And
For
that's
short.
exactly why I didn't say it.
Yeah, because I couldn't say it either.
Okay, so you want to give us a little bit of information now. We've already had, I think, one interview about who was on the committee and what purpose they were going to serve. So you want to bring us up to date from
Okay.
From
Yeah,
where you
that was
are.
me last year.
Yes.
Yeah, I came in and spoke about it.
yeah?
Well, since that time, our team has been meeting. Well, we've developed our protocols and we have them in place. So our protocols are just basically guidelines that we follow in the event that there is a traumatic incident in town. So that's in place now, and we have actually responded to one. We met as a team and responded to one. So since that time, since I was last year, that's basically what's happened. We are still kind of working out the bugs because as coordinator, there, as we're going along, I guess we discover things that we really, other things we need to work on and training and stuff. So right now, the protocols are worked out. We have responded to one, and what our team hopes to do is continue to get practice by doing mock scenarios. So, we would come in, meet, and discuss a scenario, a traumatic event, and how we would respond to that. So like practice kind of thing, right?
Okay.
Do an assessment and basically have a plan in place. So kind of give us some practice around that.
Okay, so do you still have, I believe last year we talked about who may be involved in the team. So are you settled in that now? You know exactly who the members are? So you want to tell us like who would be involved in if there was a traumatic event in the community, like who would be involved?
Well, we have a whole list. We include the guidance counselor from school, local clergy members, public health nurse, social services, mental health and addictions counselor, a representative from the hospital, one from the RCMP, the funeral director, and a school administrator.
Okay.
So it's all the resource people in our community who can assist in case of a traumatic incident.
Okay. Would those people be called in on every event, or would they, the traumatic event, determine who would be calling in? For example, if it wasn't school related, would the school counselor and the people at school be called in?
That's a good question. And that was around our protocols. There are different protocols for when a traumatic event happens to a child in school.
Yes.
Versus if it was a community member outside. So what we would do is meet to determine whether or not, we would assess to see whether or not we would even, if it, meets our mandate, or, that we should even intervene at all. And then we would decide whether or not. So in all likelihood, if it was outside of the mandate of the school, that they probably would not be involved in the actual response. I'm not saying they wouldn't be involved in the planning meeting or to meet the initial meeting.
Okay.
But in the actual intervention, what we would do, they may not if it was outside the school.
Okay.
Now, but a lot of things happen with the school is touched. So, even though a person may be out of school, they may have just left, or they may have family members who are involved in school. So I find that the school a lot of times are involved anyway, even if it's not directly.
Yeah.
Because children, if kids are involved, or parents or
Depending
relatives.
on what the situation is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're in a small community, a lot of people are related.
And a traumatic event can reach out and touch
A lot of people.
quite a few people.
In a small community, one traumatic event touches everyone in some way.
In some way or another.
We just try to assist those who are closest to the incident.
Okay. And do you meet regularly?
Well, we haven't met regularly. What we've been doing, I guess, over the fall is to doing the mock scenarios, right? So we have another one scheduled actually for next Monday. And also what we're hoping to do this winter is get some training in responding, how to, appropriately respond to people in crisis. There are other trainings that we can, responding to people with problems with grief, and so we have a list basically of training that we would like to see over the next few years. So that's our main goal, I think, over the winter as a team to meet and to do and arrange that. But for having monthly meetings, mostly they're around our publicity, which is what we're doing here today, trying to get out the word that, that team exists and what we do.
Okay.
Because that's a major part of it. Excuse me. And also to do some training. We feel more comfortable, I think, now in our roles than we did a year ago.
Okay.
People were still kind of hesitant and not really sure how this was going to pan out and what their responsibilities were. But I mean, and overall, I think people feel a lot more comfortable with their roles on the team, and each and any one of us, I think, would be able to take on the role of, coordinating a response. If they had to, if somebody's out of town or whatever the case may be. So that's I guess where we're working towards, is that idea that every member of that team has the ability to do that, right? To kind of start the ball rolling.
Okay. Are we dealing with this would be a traumatic event that would affect the whole community, or are we dealing would the team come in if it was a traumatic event in, I'll say, a personal life, and they know that you exist and they call you, would you then become involved, or would you say, well, this person has had a traumatic event in their life and maybe we could help? Is that what you're going to be doing as well?
Okay, well, we have our in our pamphlet, and I'm going to leave some pamphlets here for
Okay.
you. But our definition of a traumatic event, basically what we would respond to, we would have an initial meeting, is all traumatic deaths. So the definition that we use is caused from suicide, homicide, or accidents, all deaths of school-age children, and traumatic events in all age groups, which include serious accidents, natural disasters, and some deaths from illness. So, for example, if if somebody had if somebody died at suicide, and it was determined it was suicide, we would certainly meet and do an assessment around that, whether people in that person's family or close to them or school age, or their relatives or classmates were affected, and would respond to that. Okay, so we would respond to it. We would put a plan in place, but obviously, if people don't want that, then that's their option. This is not something that's forced on anybody. this is something that's offered, and we let
Okay.
people know that we're available, and if they want to do, access services, then we certainly, would be available to do that.
So obviously the very first thing after a traumatic event would be you guys meeting to assess and see if your services are going to be needed,
Exactly.
or if you guys are going to offer your services,
And then plan the response from there.
and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
each agency that I listed has got unique contributions
Yes.
that they can make
Okay.
towards the affected people.
Yes.
Everybody can help in a certain way.
In a certain way, yes.
And let's face it, every community, no matter what size, inevitably will have traumatic events. And so we feel like we're of great assistance to people. We really try to help as best we can.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a really good thing to have in the community, seeing that we've come through some traumatic events and everybody didn't really know how to respond or act or whatever. So you guys are kind of like a sense of security, a security blanket for us. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add that you would like the public to know?
I guess just to, that it is voluntary, that we would meet, irregardless, and if any of those events that I just mentioned happen. And it's responding to psychosocial. So we're talking about how people are feeling, and the role that we see ourselves is helping to prevent post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the main reason. A post-traumatic stress disorder is I can get into a long, drawn-out explanation, but it can be very damaging, and it's a disorder that is caused and very, very much related to witnessing or being, exposed to a traumatic event. It can be very damaging in a person's life. So what we aim to do, I guess, is to kind of help. We hope that, intervention early would offset that. So, for example, if there was a scare of meningitis, some child died of meningitis, of course it's going to cause panic in town. So even in illnesses, something like that, we could see ourselves being involved with the public health nurses, help getting the word out, educating the community, doing what we, assess as necessary to kind of, to help people deal with the fear and, some of the, I guess, the backlash from some of that, right? So you could, and that's a really different case, but it's certainly something that will be within, our mandate to do if it was the death of a school-age child. So, so basically, trying to kind of contain that and anybody who's at risk for post-traumatic stress, to help them, try to help them so they don't develop that disorder, right?
Okay. Well, we thank you very much for coming in. If someone wanted more information, I'm assuming they could probably just call either one of you or your office, Kathy.
Anybody at my office is 886-2185. The other coordinator with us is Ruby Penny, who's guidance counselor at school.
Okay.
So, and anybody on the team for that matter, right? So we're available and try to answer questions, but any questions that they might have about that, right?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in, and keep us up to date. Come back again and see how things are going.
Thank you,
Okay,
Marie.
thanks.
The War Amps Key Tag and Address Label Service go to support programs like the CHAMPS, a program that helps children amputees get the most out of life. The War Amps would like to show you how your donations to these programs helps the child amputees.
My arms helped me a lot since I've been born. I've used my artificial arm to play around the schoolyard and all over and everywhere.
War Amp's winner circle philosophy, Luke lives right up to that.
He never lets anything defeat him or overcome him.
Everything he does to his best ability.
When I went on the ice when I was 4, I wasn't quite good. I'm really fast now because I practiced and I practiced and I practiced over and over and over again. has the quick release on it.
All the recreational limbs and attachments that we get for Luke, they're all paid for through War Amps.
We don't have to tell him we can't afford for you to play because we can't afford the devices for you to play hockey or baseball or whatever it is he wants to do.
Can't quite do a flick shot yet, but it's pretty good too. I'm not sure I'll be a painter or a biologist. I can't decide yet.
Thinking of Luke's future, I have no concerns.
Luke's very lucky because he's got an enormous support group. Not only does he have his friends and family behind him, but he also has all the people at War Amps behind him. And so he's gonna have that extra little oomph when it comes to his future. And when he decides what it is that he wants to be, there won't be any doubts in his mind or anyone else's that he can do what he wants to do.
On Saturday of this week, our MP Bill Matthews and Mr. John Effort was in town. They dropped by our studio for an interview. We have with us in our studio today Mr. John Effort, Minister for Natural Resources, our MP Bill Matthews, and of course our Mayor, Mayor Ann. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure.
Yes, we're glad to have you. So what brought you guys to town this morning?
Well, let me start first. Your MP, Mr. Matthews, asked me would, at the earliest opportunity, after being appointed Minister of Natural Resources for Canada, and Regional Minister, of course, for Newfoundland and Labrador, would I come up and have a meeting with the Mayor and his councillors in the town of Burgeo and talk to some other people. So I accepted the invitation and had a great flight up here this morning. It was beautiful weather, and we're going to have some. We've already had a meeting, and we're going to have another chat shortly.
Okay. Mr. Matthews, you just decided to invite Mr. Hifford down to have a chat, so how did that come about?
Well, Mayor Hand contacted me on behalf of the council to ask me would I get in touch with Minister Efford to invite him to Burgeo to sit down with the council and to talk about town issues and to see if there's some possibilities and options of somehow finding a resource to start a core industry for Burgeo, which we've been trying to do for some period of time, but with certainly limited success, in most cases very little success. But so we had a great chat this morning with the council and Minister Efford and myself, and we talked about some options for the town, and you know, we've been working at this for a while. Minister Efford, as the regional minister, is now engaged in this and is going to work very closely with me. And as regional minister, he's going to work with the Federal Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and any other federal people that we feel may be able to help us in trying to find some kind of a solution for Burgeo. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to try.
Okay. Now, Mayor Ann, from your perspective, how did the meeting go?
Well, I think the meeting was as good as I expected. You know, there's no one got the magic bullet. There's nobody can pull the rabbit out of the hat. And we covered a whole range of things, from seals to shrimp to crab, you name it. We covered it this morning. I'm sure that Minister Efford, even though he was informed and knew what Burgeo was, that he's got a better appreciation of the situation we're in right now. And he's on side, as I knew he would be, and we're going to try to pull together to see if we can't pull that rabbit out of the hat.
Just let me add a couple of things to what Bill and the Mayor have already said. I've been to Burgeo, of course,
yes,
a few times in the past when I was Minister of Fisheries here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But Bill, as the MP for the area, brought it to my attention quite a number of times in discussions in caucus in Ottawa over the last 18 months since I got elected. And when I was the MP for Bonavista Trinity Conception, we had many discussions over the issues and the circumstance and talked about the history of Burgeo and where it is today. And just shortly after getting appointed Minister for Canada, Minister for Newfoundland and Labrador, Bill seized the opportunity and asked me would I come in and sit down and discuss with the mayor some issues. And there are a couple of options, and I guess what I'm saying to you, to the people, and what I'm saying to Bill, my commitment and to the mayor, is that as the regional minister for Newfoundland and Labrador, and my position as natural resources minister for Canada, sat around the cabinet table, and my other colleagues like the Honourable Jeff Regan, the Minister of Fisheries, I've made a commitment to take some issues to Ottawa, and as I've said to other people in doing things, give it my best effort.
Well, that's certainly very favorable for us. Now, can you tell us some of the things that you discussed around the table as to what might be an industry for this community? Mr. Mayor?
Well, you know, I'm certainly not going to go out on a limb. When I said we discussed everything there was in the fishing line, we did. And so, you know, it would be too extensive to go into the meeting that we had there. Now, all I can say is that we had a good meeting. Everybody is more informed. We've now touched bases with the province, the Minister Trevor Taylor. We've now touched base with the Minister in the Cabinet in the Government of Canada. So he's better informed. Bill was always informed. Taylor's informed. The Burgeo Town Council is certainly informed. The people of Burgeo are informed. So I suppose I'd have to say it was more an information session than and from there we hope that the wheels will turn, and hopefully the day will come when these two gentlemen, and not in the not too distant future, I would hope, will be back here sitting down on Burgeo Broadcasting again saying, here's what we got for Burgeo, here's what's going to happen, or that's my wish.
And I can understand the frustration of the people of Burgeo. I mean, they were a flourishing town back a number of years ago in the heyday of the fisheries, and go through what they went through for quite a number of years now. And I want to be very careful of what I'm saying, because I can understand the skepticism of the people.
Sure.
And well, we've heard this in the past, and I guess what I'm saying, and what Bill is saying, and what the mayor is saying, what we're collectively saying together, we're going to explore options, and we're going, and I'm going seriously. I'm going to do whatever I possibly can, and if there's any way that we can do something for the town for the long term. I don't believe in band-aid approaches. I don't believe in just saying something to make it politically look good. I mean, it's a serious situation here. The people are stuck with their community, their town. They're very sincere, and they're looking for some opportunity, and we are going to explore some possibilities.
I'm not quite sure now, I think it was probably last year or even the year before, our MHA, Calvin Parsons, did a presentation on the Laurentian Basin and the natural gas and oil. Did that happen to come up anywhere at all, or where is that now in terms of bringing ashore any natural gas or oil, or is that just still in the preliminary stages?
Well, let me answer it first, because
Yes.
comes under my responsibility as Minister for Natural Resources for Canada. Well, we know the boundary is decided on between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So now it's up to the oil companies to apply for licenses to exploratory work. And one of the things that I've committed to in my travels around Canada over the last 3 or 4 weeks and meeting with the oil companies is make it so that we'll get a lot more exploration work on the Grand Banks in the Laurentian Channel, because we know the oil and gas is there. I mean, there's not wondering if it's there. We know there's oil and gas out there. And we certainly, the world markets are excellent. One of the problems that the companies are experiencing when they put an application in for a license to do, or permit to do exploratory work, between the federal and the provincial and environmental systems, DFO and the regulatory regime, it takes about 18 months to 2 years. Now, we've got an Atlantic Roundtable put together. I've met with ministers in Ottawa. I'm meeting with the Atlantic Roundtable because there is absolutely no logic in that whatsoever. We can reduce that by at least 6 months, between 6 months to a year, and still not jeopardize the environment or the fisheries or any of the process. In the United States, for example, it takes 120 days. Here, it takes 2 years. So it's not right. And if we can reduce that amount, when we reduce that amount of time, then you're going to get companies being more apt to go out there and do exploratory work. And that's what we have to do to give the companies the license, the permits to go out there, and you're going to see a lot of things happen. Once the exploratory starts, definitely there's oil and gas. There's no question about that.
And having said that, we know that the resource is there. And considering where Burgeo is in relations to a bigger center, do you think that would be a possibility for us to be, I'll say, a base camp?
Well, first
for
of all,
the companies?
the opportunity is there,
Yes.
and I guess what the community has got to do then is become aggressive and convince the oil companies that this is the ideal location for a supply port, ice-free, which is a major issue with the oil companies, major issue. So there will be an opportunity, and it depends on the negotiations and how we go after it. Now, I'm the minister, I'm certainly aware of Burgeo. I'll certainly make the case to the companies and see if that can happen. It is a possibility.
Very good. Now, you've already had this meeting. What's the next plan? You've discussed several options. People are more informed. Where do we go from here now?
Well, we're expecting, we basically understand the town's position. We understand the options, and Minister Efford better understands the options. The town is undertaken to probably touch up or, I guess, get ready a report that had been submitted earlier. They're going to do it up a bit and resubmit it particularly to Minister Efford and the new Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and stuff. I'd keep myself informed. So, you know, there's not a lot of homework to be done, but there's some things that need to be done for us to, I guess, renew the concentration and effort into some options for Burgeo. I mean, you know, some people question why you say, you know, people get tired of meetings and talking the same things over and over. But what a meeting like this does, though, it gives everyone a chance to brainstorm and talk about a little history and plan for the future. So from my perspective, I think this will give us a renewed vigor to go forward. And Minister Efford is our new regional minister. He and I have worked very closely in the last 18 months as two members of Parliament. He's only been the regional minister for a couple of months now. And I find he's pretty good to work with. So I'm hoping that with the regional ministers tuned into Burgeo needs as he is, that it's not going to be simple, not going to be easy, but I think it increases our chances of finding something. Okay, so I look forward to working with John and Alistair and the council and the people to see if we can't find a solution, because, you know, it's resource based. To find a solution for a core industry for Burgeo, we have to find a resource. And that's the challenge. I think if we could find a resource for Burgeo, I think the rest of it will come after. It goes back to your point about the oil and gas and the potential for Burgeo. You know, the oil companies are going to need certain infrastructure, certain services. Wherever they're going to service the exploration or the development after, there's going to be certain infrastructure and service requirements. So really Burgeo has to get itself, it has to do an inventory of what it has to offer. It has to look at what may be needed and find some ways perhaps of going forward into getting that, because you know, the oil companies are going to go to the place that can best provide the service and are best suited for it. I mean, that's the realities of life. Location is key. It's very important. Ice-free, closest to where the exploration is going, where the development will be, but you're going to need to be prepared from an infrastructure and service point of view, in my opinion, to be even considered by the companies.
Okay. Now, have you guys scheduled another meeting to come back to the table, say, in a few months' time and discuss where you are?
Let me answer that before the mayor. First of all, the mayor's got a proposal that he had done up before, and the bill just said he's going to redo it and submit it to me. And what I will be doing when I go back to Ottawa, I've already got one proposal on the marine conservation area. When I get the other proposal, I need then to sit down and talk to other ministers. Okay. The one thing that I've committed, and I'm very serious about it, I've committed to your MP Bill, who's been, as Bill said, we've worked very closely since I got elected federally on a number of issues. Now I'm the minister. I can take the thing that we're asking other ministers to do, I can take it right to the door where I have a responsibility. So we'll work in that manner as soon as we get the things finalized over the next couple of weeks, get the next report. I'm going back to Ottawa tomorrow as well as Bill is. So give us some time to put a date on that. If I say it's going to be the middle of March or it's going to be the middle of February, it's pretty difficult to do that. But as soon as I get some information, as soon as I get the files working, I'll be contacting. Well, Bill is there all the time anyhow. We'll be keeping working together on this on a regular basis, and then we'll arrange an appropriate time.
Okay. Well, we really, is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, the thing is, there's no commitments. we now have John at the cabinet table. Bill is there in caucus. He's on the standing committee for fisheries and oceans. Both of them are working with the province as well. So, you know, Burgio's been instilled upon, especially John's mind. I mean, it's got to be there in Bill's mind because that's his job. But, you know, so I feel good about this. And yes, the last thing I got is I really want to thank Bill for arranging this meeting so fast, you know, and I must say that I get this from Bill all the time. The people have heard me say it before time and time again, you know. It's just a matter of picking up the phone, and Bill have fled out of Ottawa time and again just to attend the meeting, got right back on the plane and went back. And it was just a matter of contacting him. When the request went, he was out of the province. In fact, he was taking a little vacation. He wasn't back, no time at all, and he was here. So publicly, on behalf of the people of Burgeo, I want to thank you, John, for coming to our town, for taking an interest in us, and I'll still have confidence. I've died in despair quite a few times, but that's beside the point. We'll stay there, and hopefully that this will do it. And you too, Bill. And Bill, of course, he'll be back again. He's always popping in and out as far as I'm concerned.
Just let me put a final comment, and I'll second final, kind of like Bill the final. You got to remember, last year Bill was fortunate enough to bring the now Prime Minister, who was then Paul Martin, to the community. And the Prime Minister have expressed concerns and talked about his interest in finding something for Burgeo. And I mean, I'm aware of that. So that gives us that extra open. You got the mayor and the people of Burgeo, not just the mayor, he's the mayor of the town, but the people of Burgeo are very, very persistent. And they not quit us. And I think that that's good in itself. And I think building a good working relationship with, we got the Prime Minister knowledgeable with Burgeo. Your MP never quits, never stops talking about his riding and places the town of Burgeo and the need to do something. And now I'm fortunate enough to be the federal minister and our working relationship, so we're going to do whatever we possibly can.
Okay, Mr. Matthews.
Well, it's just a pleasure to be here once again with the mayor and the council and the people of Burgeo, and to have my friend John Efford with me. But getting back to last year's visit by the now Prime Minister Paul Martin, I had a choice where to take Paul Martin in Buren St. George's. And I chose to bring him to Burgeo, and I took him to Belorem. And to be very honest with you, there's 100 people who asked me why I was taking Paul Martin to Belorem and Burgeo. Why? I went to a reception that night back in St. John's when we got there, and everyone there says, Bill, can you tell me, why did you take Paul Martin to Burgeo and Belorem? And I said, well, you're answering the question because so many of you, I've raised a curiosity, because, very honest with you, like, I could have taken Paul Martin to Marystown. Sure. I could have taken him to Stephenville. I could have taken him to Port of Bass. Not that I wouldn't like to, and if I had him again, I would have taken him somewhere else. But I figured I had one shot with Paul Martin. And I wanted to do something with Paul Martin that is way different than his visits to Calgary and Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal. I wanted to take him to two places that had very strong histories of prosperity. I wanted to show him the situation in Burgeo as it was then and is now, where people are unemployed, they're looking for a future. I wanted to impress upon him, and more importantly, have the people of Burgeo impress upon him they want to stay here, they're determined to live here, and that the government of Canada should play some role in getting a solution. And so that's why I brought him here. And I'm delighted I did, because you know, I've come across him, the Prime Minister, now so many times, and he brings up his trip to Burgeo. So at least we've got Burgeo in his mind. And that night, when we went back to St. John's, by the way, John had the pleasure of picking him up at the hotel to drive him to the function. Now, I wasn't there. But John told me that night, he said, you know, as soon as I got Paul inside the car, he didn't say, good night, John, or how are you doing? He said, John, what in the hell can we do for Burgeo? Right? So I guess why I brought him here worked. Okay? Now, you know, as we proceed with this, I'll remind him again he was here, and if we need his help, no doubt, you know, we might engage him. But that's why I brought him here, and I thought it was very important, because two things: Burgeo needs help, but as well I thought for a person like Paul Martin, who is now the Prime Minister of Canada, that he needed to get a flavour of what life is like in Burgeo and Belorem. As I said, he's in the big cities all the time, but this is the extreme of rural. This is the, I guess, I guess if there's example of difficult situations in rural Canada and rural Newfoundland and Labrador. This was it. And I thought it was very important for the future Prime Minister to experience that and to see it. So I'm hoping that because of that, it will have an impact on future programs and policies of the Government of Canada that can help places like Burgeo.
Okay.
So that's why I did it, and delighted he came here. I'm delighted today John is here, and it's a real pleasure to be here with the Mayor and the Council again.
Well, we certainly extend our thanks to you both for taking time out of your schedule to drop by and just do a quick interview and let the people of our town know what you've been up to. Thank you so very much. And we extend an invitation that anytime you're in town, just drop by.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming by on Saturday morning, Marie.
Oh, you're kindly welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stay with us for Off the Rack, the community events, and the BBS Playbill, all after this.
In a scene from prehistory, still fjords run deep, hemmed in by giant granite walls, carved by volcanoes, tectonic upheaval, 20 times as old as the Rockies. Our park. Imagine that.
Off the Rack. This week, as we scanned our tape rack, we came across a tape of horse rides on the Three Ponds. Let's look back to February the 20th, 1994.
Hear me!
Good evening. Welcome to the community events segment of tonight's broadcast. I'm Rebecca Young. The winner of the Burgeo Academy TV Bingo was Melanie Durnford. Congratulations, Melanie. The Burgeo Academy will be having TV Bingo on Wednesday, February 4th at 7 p.m. One game for $300. Cards are $6 or $5 and are available from any student of the Burgeo Academy and are in most stores around town. Please support the students at Burgeo Academy. Play TV Bingo, and you could win $300. The Burnett's are selling tickets on a basket of towels. Tickets cost $2 for $3 and are available from any member of the Burnett's. There is still time to order Valentine balloons and surprise someone special in your life. The cost is $1 each and can be ordered by calling Kim at 886-2209, Alice at 886-2708, or Lisa at 886-2076. Prayer partners are asked to call Grace at 886-2117 to place their orders. Deadline for orders is Monday, February 9th. The Burgeo Public Library will be holding a book fair from February 2nd to 6th. A prize draw of $20 worth books is to be won at the end of the week. Very reasonable prices from $1 up. Drop by and take a look. The sponsor sheets for the Ground Search and Rescue Snowmobile Ride are now available from any of the committee members: Arch Green, Jim Marsden, Jim Domine, Dan Buffett, and Wilf Porter. If your group or organization has an upcoming event planned, we will be happy to advertise it for you. Just call the BBS office by Wednesday of each week to have items included in this portion of our broadcast. That concludes the community events segment of tonight's broadcast. See you next week.
BBS Playbill. Try your luck on Wednesday by playing Burgeo Academy TV Bingo. Tune in on Thursday for a video entitled Small Fishing Vessel Safety. Join Pans in the Gang for 2 stories, a craft, and lots of fun on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on Pansy's Garden. And I'll be here again next week with This Week in Review. For This Week in Review, I'm Marie Rose. Good night and God bless.